Friends, we start our session about the Russian-speaking media, media in exile, Russian-speaking media between those who left and those who stayed. There are some changes in this panel. There will be Yulia Dudkina, the editor-in-chief of the women's media Kosa, and the editor-in-chief of the Mediagrach, Petr Mironenko, the editor-in-chief of the project Bleiben, Kirill, the editor-in-chief of the Novaya Gazeta Europe. We would like to speak about the following. In general, I think that the media in exile is the best thing what the Russian immigration of the last 3 years could create. It is even better than the political opposition, better than everything else. But it's not clear in how far this infrastructure, this media system is sustainable because of different reasons. It is clear that the media in exile doesn't have any income from advertisement, from publicity, and the system which does not have any income from advertisement has to operate with some support from foreign foundations, maybe from some help, donations, and it doesn't matter how opposite we are to the situation. There is an iron curtain. We are penetrated by some certain values here. Where are the people inside? So the people left in Russia who are opponents of the war, which was demonstrated by such persons like Schlossberg, Yulia Galyanina, and even Ilya Yashin after he was liberated. They are penetrated by other moods and other visions. There are some sense barriers. And I am afraid that so the same as after the dismantlement of the Soviet Union at the end of the 80s, the beginning of the 90s, it was so that the people on different sides of the curtain speak different languages, they have different political culture, they have different views on political systems, they have different preparedness and readiness for dialogue and compromise. And one other line to be discussed within this session. It is really difficult to work for journalists if they don't live on their earth, if they are separated with their homeland. So, for example, if I'm speaking about myself and I'm an economic journalist, so it was very easy to me just to make an appointment with a minister and to make an interview. But now it is really dangerous for some sources inside to talk to the journalists outside, and the context is not there anymore in order to understand adequately the situation. And finally, and this is the line close to Yulia Dudkina, this is about that journalists who stayed in Russia, it is dangerous to be too politicized because it's too risky for their job. If you are still continuing to cooperate with media, which are foreign agents or unwishful media, it's a big risk. But still some of them continue in doing so. The right for such media in our country, but we have also such others at country in the world. All this complex of questions is to be discussed today. First of all, the floor goes to Yulia Dudkina. She is editor-in-chief of the Medium, Women's Medium Kosa, and of the Medium Grach. We will need the slides. If it's possible, I have some slides. Kosa Media, this is the media which cooperates with journalists who are in Russia and write about what is happening in Russia. Mediagrach, this is a newsletter for journalists, and a lot of our readers work in Russia. Why are we talking about this? In order not to lose the contact to the audience and just to check what's happening. So that's why it is really important to stay in contact with Russian journalists. Maybe you remember that after the beginning of the war, there were different situations that some media informed that something was no more available in Russia. Maybe it was not so, but the readers in Russia just saw it in another light. They saw it as propaganda. Everything was available, and the real propaganda could use such situations for their sake. There is for some mistrust, for some bad feeling, in order not to trust the media. I would like to also to add, I didn't leave Russia immediately. I worked for the next 1.5 years in Russia anonymously, and I can understand these feelings. Recently, we carried out some survey. It's a series of interviews with our authors and readers from the newsletter Mediagrach, and we asked them how they feel and which problems and challenges they face in the last 3 years. What are the difficulties you face in the last 3 years? The first quote, psychological difficulties, the relapse of depression, concern about the future. This is a very common answer of all those who work anonymously, who work even for state media, and just comply with the requirement of the censorship. So the next, pressure and control from the side of the authorities, also among the journalists who even don't work for independent media, but a lot of our readers work for state media, but still feel the pressure, and they don't like the situation. They want to have the possibilities to do some other more objective journalistic work. And the third one, the not possibility to write about the important topics, about the war, about the censorship. This is a very common opinion, which sounds so as if someone would be offended. There is a feeling that the editors-in-chief don't understand the condition or the circumstances under which the editors-in-chief work inside the country. There is no regular communication, no sustainable communication. You have a feeling that your job is not important. It's also a big challenge, and many editors face this. Those who are in immigration, they have a lot of new challenges. Maybe they don't have enough resources, they don't have enough employees. You have to organize maybe some other problems, maybe to do something with documents. But those who stay in the country, they don't see this. They think that all my friends are abroad, they are all together, they have their community, and they forgot about me. No one thinks about me. Not all the problems can be solved. Some of them have problems how to get the salary because of the sanctions. They have some problems with bank cards. The money transfer is the problem. It's difficult to solve. For many of them say because it's not unsolvable in a convenient way. They think that no one is interested in their problems. I cannot publish under my own name. I cannot openly speak about my job. It is really important for many of them. Many of them became journalists exactly because of that. If I'm on a job travel, I'm asked for a press card and I have an editorial task. I don't have anything to show. If you are is a media awarded with some special toxic status, like a foreign agent, you don't get a press card. So it will be more problem for you than a solution. But if you don't have any document, any identity card as a journalist, so it's really difficult to talk to someone because they tell you just prove that you're a journalist. It's difficult. Technical difficulties, problems, VPN, difficulties to get the salary because of sanctions, not enough communication, networking, feeling of isolation. The next one, we asked, which help, what tools do you need? What is missing? Psychological support, recommendations, where to get it. The more open job exchange for the work with independent media, more projects like Glush. Glush is a project to contact journalists in Russia and to bring them in contact with editors and journalists to find someone in any region. This answer was given by a person who works in a media which is censored, and this person didn't have any experience before to work with independent media, and this person didn't know how to get in contact with independent media. Now there is a very narrow entrance in this independent media, because if there is a new person, the person has to be checked, because there are some persons from the enforcement structures and borders. They are trying to be integrated into independent media to act as a spy. And so then you have to confirm it as a person with your publications or with your works before. It's difficult to do so. Regulations, safety workshops, help and discussions of safety, anonymous SIM card. There are a lot of young journalists who have just finished their studies at the journalistic faculties. Unfortunately, they don't discuss the topics of safety, and they don't understand what to do. They don't have enough experience. I know about some case. There was a girl, she wrote from her personal website where her address was stated, and then the screenshot was made and it was put into some propagandist's chat, and there was a shitstorm. Some journalistic education is missing. We need more networking, more communication with colleagues, more experience exchange, more workshops. It's not clear where to study journalism. We would like to know more about the financial security and to get safe devices to work. But there are also positive news. Many of these questions are already solved. There are some successful cases, and to make them to have even more of them, we need some good examples. So what we already have, we have a lot of schools and workshops, like the school Kola. I was a curator myself at that school. I had 3 girls in my team, beginning journalists, and 2 of them became permanent authors, and they wrote very strong texts. The school Iskra, Metla, Svobodny Universitet. So all of them just give classes for journalists. Sometimes these courses are very specialized.
Quite often those courses are specialized, but I know that a lot of people ask for some basic training, how to write a text, how to contact people, how to talk to them. And there are different initiatives, but like Club of Normal Journalists, for example, journalists from Russia and from abroad meet and talk on different subjects. How can you talk to a person who doesn't want to talk to you and who is rude? Different trainings on safety and security. Those trainings are in high demand in the last years. And a lot of media that start to work with people from inside Russia create special procedures. Some want the journalists to create professional pages without any personal data, they have security checks, etc. But of course, it would be very nice if knowledge about this is widely spread and every beginning journalist gets this information in our mailing list. We also give information on how to set up a notebook, etc., etc. Editors for freelancers. It's very interesting because sometimes the journalists get the impression that they are forgotten, but in some media there are special editors to work exclusively with freelancers, to explain them what to do, to help them find information. Well, it's a system of communication so that they don't feel abandoned. And there are platforms for journalists from Russia, like Glush, Novaya Vkladka, Sini Kapibari. Well, probably I forgot someone, so please don't get offended, dear colleagues. The project with coaches for young journalists, they cooperate with different media. And they pay really a lot of attention to safety and security. Some words about our audience. It's a closely related subject because we understood that, well, the mood among the audience and among the journalists in Russia are quite similar, and there is nothing surprising in it. So we have a community. 90% of this community are women and young girls from 25 to 50 years who live in Russia, who are against the war. And we asked them how they felt and what they were lacking. And they told us that they want to communicate with people with similar opinions. They want to have a community where they could exchange views. So they are looking for a place without radical ideas, a place where they can give information from different angles. It's very difficult to find similar-minded people. We want more support, more information, more positive news. That's also interesting because quite often I hear questions. Well, why are you writing about some trees, about ecology, while we are at war? And that's important if we are talking to those people who are in doubt, who are not very politically active, but who are interested in the news, so we can find some common themes, common topics. Probably if they start reading us, they will get interested in politics. So a few words about our own activity, about our experience. We have a community for people inside Russia. So we try to support them, to exchange information. And for journalists, it may be an interesting tool quite often in communities within youth from the regions, which otherwise can get unnoticed. Or, for example, we note that in a region people are worried about some topic, and if we don't find information about this, we'll find it too late. We give a possibility to share a person's own story. Well, someone could propose a news via our bot, or an author could propose his pitch. It's a way to get in contact with journalists inside Russia, to get stories from those journalists. Stories about what's going on inside Russia, investigations, news, not only about politicians, but also about social issues, and some supporting content. We are really lacking some supportive content and information. No, that's my experience. That's what we are trying to do, to stay in contact with our audience and with the journalists. Thank you very much.
Спасибо огромное, Юлия.
Thank you very much, Yulia. It's very important that you speak about it. Well, I believe it's quite evident. Well, we didn't mention what's going on in Moscow State University, in the High School of Economy, places where they teach new journalists. Well, of course, please, any questions, any comments? Sergey.
Думаю, что слабость или отсутствие солидарности.
I believe that lack of solidarity, it's the main problem in Russia today, and that's why, well, there is a high demand for some group of psychological support, etc., etc. As for the journalists, in your opinion, in Russia today, can a journalist count on some professional solidarity? Because journalists are under constant pressure. But where can a journalist get help from its media, from some network? Well, it's difficult to speak on behalf of all the media and all the journalists, because there are different practices. But I know that many media who have journalists in Russia, well, they provide the instructions on safety and security, they have contacts with lawyers, they also foresee a possibility of instant evacuation, and I know that my colleagues are very serious about it. That's what I can say.
Или это медиа сразу сдаст своего журналиста, как только он попадет в трудное положение.
Media abandon a journalist as soon as the journalist is in difficulty. Well, it's a very interesting question. We don't know a lot about what's going on within media who are under state censorship. Yes, of course, those are two different worlds. Rita, please. Thank you very much. I have two questions. Well, the first question, it's about solidarity among journalists. Well, with the journalists who are abroad. And I have also a second question. So my first question about solidarity. I have the impression that despite the fact that we are all very supportive and we all communicate a lot, we don't have any institutionalized solidarity. Well, I'm not speaking about a trade union because well, some people are afraid of trade unions and others don't want it. But what do you think? Do you have a need for some institution to represent your interests. And the second question is about young journalists. Maybe it's a simpler one. So, in your opinion, is there a moral problem for you if a young journalist approaches you and tells you, I want to tell about what's going on in Russia? He's not afraid of anything. And well, I don't have a lot of experience because I took part in some master classes with young journalists, and well, I didn't really like it because I think those people don't have all the information. And when I tell them that even if you write about economy, it's risky, I have the impression that they don't understand me. But on the other hand, if I don't want to tell them that they don't need to do it, that it's dangerous. So it's a very difficult choice. So I think that, well, there is a real lack of journalists in Russia, but thank you one more time for your work. Well, I will start with your second question about young journalists. I believe that you should discuss all the risks, and if someone tells you that, well, this person wants to work in a media, well, it depends on the media, because, well, there are some media that are not blocked, and there are media that are recognized as extremists, so you are risking criminal persecution. So it depends on the media, and also you should understand how mature this young journalist is, how independent, well, this person is. It's quite subjective, yes, but an editor should be sure that, well, the person understands what this person is doing. So you should talk about safety and security, what to do in case of emergency, in case of, well, if someone from security forces calls you. It's very, very important, yes. But if, well, this person understands what he or she is doing, of course, I can't dissuade them. But yes, we need to talk about the most dangerous things, about maybe a colleague who is abroad should do the most risky stuff. As for solidarity, well, for a long time, I believed that there was no solidarity, and now I have the impression that there are more and more micro-communities, chats, where people start to help each other, to self-organize. There are some training groups, discussion groups for journalists. Well, I think there are more and more such groups. And, well, and our mailing list, Mediagrach, is also a part of this process because we are announcing some news about the journalists to give life hacks. I believe the micro-community will be formed around this mailing list, and hopefully something bigger will be born out of it. Please, go on. One more question, and we pass the floor to Petr. I have one more question about the supportive content on your presentation. It was yoga with Kosa and book club with Kosa. Could you tell a bit more about this? Because it's an interesting way of communicating with the audience where everyone is afraid of everyone. And my next question, are there any confidence problems? How do you solve safety and security issues? Because there, well, an agent can be involved in the security. Yes, go on. So we have a closed community, and we vet people, so new people have to fill up a questionnaire with some tricky questions. They show us their social network. So if you have some experience in fact checking, you can tell a real person from a bot. Of course, if some really wants to get into this group, it's possible. So we do regular talks with each other, and we say that, well, if you want to share some sensitive information, please follow those instructions. If you are afraid of sharing some information during a Zoom call, please don't show your face. So there are some elementary rules. We are all adults. We all understand our risks. So from time to time, we also do educational activities about safe behavior in social media, etc. And on our community platform, well, people discuss everything. It can be politics, it can be, well, something about new laws. Well, it's a women's community. Well, they discuss child free, etc. There are also things like book club, where we help people to feel that, well, they have this network of similar-minded people. So one more question, if someone wants to ask. No, thank you very much, Julia. Petr Mironenko via Zoom. Thank you very much. So we are discussing very interesting things. It's important for us to understand the financial model, whether media in exile can be sustainable, and also different messages. Can we stay abroad, and well, what are the main differences between those who are inside and who are outside? Yes, thank you very much, and I'm very sorry I didn't have time to prepare for this speech because I'm replacing Elizaveta Osetinskaya. So I will share some thoughts. So first, I'll say a few things about our editorial work. So we don't have a lot of traditional problems that Yulia mentioned, because our publication is focused on economics. So our newsmakers, they are more cynic, more professionals. So we don't have a problem when people from business refuse to talk to us. But of course, we are foreign agents. They don't disclose their names. We talk to officials, to civil servants, and нарабатывать какие-то новые контакты с людьми из этого мира будет очень трудно. It's not easy to get new contacts in this field. Она, безусловно, будет чувствоваться намного больше на горизонте 3-5 лет. Those difficulties now, but in 4 or 5 years, this problem will be felt. Намного, по-моему, конечно, из таких редакционных проблем намного острее для нас кадровый вопрос. We have staff problems. We don't. Even before 2022, there were not a lot of people who we could contact. Well, you understand that. This job doesn't have a lot of prestige. It's very difficult to find new people, and it has never been so difficult. So in my opinion, that's the most serious issue. And, well, a few more words about this financial component. financial sustainability of our media, because of course we are very preoccupied about it. I always think about those issues as about a competition problem. I know that a lot of people fled Russia. I think
many editions
40
left
publications,
Russia.
big media, a big TV channel,
There was also a big
and
media channel
all
which left
continued
Russia.
to work, and they've been working for 3
It's
years.
a miracle, and it's nice that there was a possibility to work abroad. First of all, thanks to digital communication, so that we can work this way and not to lose the contact to the audience. And because of the European and American politicians, they gave us some funding. It allowed us to get the financial existence, but now it is quite clear that there is a kind of being exhausted from the war, and this money is going to its end, and there will be less money in the future. That's why. Of course, there are some maybe questions. What will it give us? So many journalists left Russia, and still there is no result out of this activity. Putin is still there. It doesn't help Ukrainians. It is getting even worse. But even this is not the worst thing. The worst thing is that the business model of all the editions, which are businesses, it is tested now, it is checked now, mainly because of this environmental breakage between the media and the audience. There are different possibilities to earn money, and none of this can exist without the audience. And the less contact we have to the audience, the less money we earn. And we will feel this more and more in the future, I think. As a result, we are now in a situation that a lot of media which were competing in Russia to get money from out of 50 million persons audience, it's a very big circle of people, but now we are trying to compete to monetize only 1 million persons. And there are no miracles, and the situation will end, that there will be less media in general, and those will survive who will be able to find the audience they can convert into money. There is nothing new about this, but we do two things. The first thing, we try to find some appropriate products, niche products, in order not to get just donations. So we try to avoid the model only of donations and trying to do what everyone tried to do before 22, to sell media as a service, to do something useful for persons so that they pay for that, not only because of donation, but just pay money for service. And it is difficult. The products can be only niche products. The first product was so we are in newsletter from the very beginning, the first product, so different newsletters, and the first project for private investors, which deeply analyzes different topics. How to invest money outside of Russia. We like this product because it confirms our ideas. So we help people to earn money not in Russia, but outside of Russia. We don't help them to earn money with things which could help the Russian army, but we help them to bring the money outside of Russia. And this product helps people to earn money, and they are ready to pay for that. This is the first one. And the second one, from the summer of this year, we are trying, it's maybe a kind of experiment. We introduced the paywall for our main product, so for our daily newsletter and weekly newsletter. We position them as an analytical medium. So because it's really difficult to sell it, but if you're just a normal newsletter, it's difficult to sell it. But as an analytical product, it's a bit easier to sell it. It's a kind of experiment. If you close your main product, of course, we have. So you are allowed to read the newsletter 5 times for free, but then you have to pay. But we were afraid, because if you close your product by a paywall, it's really scary, because you don't know how it will be. Because you think maybe no one will read you anymore. So the journalists, they are concerned about, will be there any views or clicks? But in some moment we understood that if we don't start with it now, it will be getting even more difficult in the future. This experiment is still ongoing. So it doesn't mean that they pay, everyone pays now, but there are a lot of people who are subscribed to this newsletter now. So the share is growing. So now it's justified. That's it. So now I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you, Petr. Questions, comments, please. Ivan Preobrazhensky.
Да, Петр, спасибо большое.
Thank you, Petr. I have a question which is simple on one side, but maybe difficult on the other side.
Речь о том, что вы совершенно правильно заметили, что огромное количество русскоязычных медиа.
You're absolutely right in saying that a lot of Russian media has managed to leave Russia and still to keep its activity. There are even new media.
Чем дальше, тем больше находящиеся в эмиграции, по сути,
they stay in immigration, they face the problem of financing. You spoke a lot about the project you launch, but is there a simple possibility? There is Russian money, historical Russian money, which is abroad, which is outside of Russia. Can we say that the media outside of Russia, out of different reasons, should try to seek for money from the historical, middle-sized, big-sized, very big-sized Russian business abroad?
Нет, может ли вообще такая история возникнуть? Могут ли возникнуть деньги для российских медиа?
Can we get money for Russian media from the Russian business? So you call it historical Russian money which was earned in Russia but is now abroad?
Мне очень трудно давать здесь как бы точную интерпретацию.
In fact, I don't know how to interpret it. We understand that every money which is connected to a businessman who left Russia Sakharov earned the money outside of Russia, and probably so left his Russian portion of business inside. So it's difficult to say if it's Russian money or not, or if you have a Russian passport. So is his money Russian? But if it's outside of Russia, if it's still Russian or not?
Так или иначе, они тоже будут определены как российские. Причем речь идет о том, что
we speak about
человек, который очень давно
any person, maybe a person who left Russia years ago and doesn't have any economical connections to Russia, but still the question is, can we try to use money out of this direction for the Russian media? How could such system look like? I know that the Nemtsov Foundation tries to establish the trust system which could fulfill such a function, and maybe there will be some reputation problems resulting of this. Because in many countries of the European Union, they have a very careful attention to the money resulting out of Russia. So the question can be divided into two parts. The first part is about money in general, and the second is about some small amount of money. For example, if you sell some subscriptions, so we sell some subscriptions, it costs $10. If someone pays $10 legally, so it's just money. If he pays, it's through any bank, so it's just money. The second question, it's about the financing from the side of the big businesses. That's another question. On one side, just from the ideological point of view, so I think we hear a lot of accusation against Russian businessmen. You didn't do anything, you didn't show any protest, you didn't influence anything, you're not trying to do anything against what is happening. Everything you do, so you just talk about that sanctions harm you, that's it. That's a fair accusation, maybe. And maybe if any Russian or a Russian businessman of Russian origin tries to do anything about such accusations, so we should welcome this, and maybe we should create a tool, kind of a trust foundation or something like this, on one side, but on the other side, do we want to accept any big institutional or personal donations? Maybe or sell some shares to other businessmen. It's a bit dangerous, it's scary, especially because because of the conflict of interests. It's not quite sustainable for a long-term perspective. So I began my speech from grants and donations, but the disadvantage of grants and financing is unpredictableness. So we cannot predict what will happen in the future. So, you know, someone was fired and someone is ill, and it's about the European bureaucracy, how it works. And tomorrow, so your grant or your funding is cut, and you don't have it anymore. So if you are trying to establish a media business, and you have to plan. It is difficult because it's not sustainable just to rely on grants, on financing, on donations. Because if you establish a kind of a platform and you want to have a sustainable way to earn money, you need your audience. And we have to count with our audience. What you mean? Okay, it's also a nice thing. It's like a monetization of your contacts. But it's difficult to rely on it. Thank you. Alexander Morozov, please.
Александр Морозов, у меня очень короткий вопрос.
I have a very short question. Do we understand the difference between the political journalism and immigration and that one which left in the country? But if you talk about the economic journalism, is it the same on both sides, or is there any big difference between that one inside and that one outside? There is a lot of difference. It's clear that the key thing, what separates us between the colleagues inside Russia and outside of Russia is the censorship. And it was quite astonishing as we discussed the budget this year. I couldn't even imagine that it can be so. That there is an article which is published by such newspapers as Kommersant and Vedomosti. But that was the article of Bloomberg, so that the military budget has achieved its record. 40% of the GDP. So it was a big business news, and no one writes about such news. It was really astonishing. It was a kind of a new level of journalism. Before, they would have written about that. Something like Peskov commented on this, that, and those, but they even didn't mention that news. But in this case, they waited a whole week till Mishustin just told them that they are allowed to write about this, and then they got some materials from the state and copied them in the newspaper. So it's getting even more of such cases. So from one side, but the other difference is this is the difference of resources. Every time, if I open any newspaper in Russia, maybe I'm envying them, I don't know, but there are a lot of resources which are used in vain. We would use them in another way. They have much more resources, but they don't write about the main economic news of the quarter. There is a difference, and the censorship is there in place. The question was about that. Maybe I understood it wrong. I don't know. Thank you. Vladimir Matorin.
И затем передаем слово Кириллу Мартынову.
And then the floor goes to Kirill Martynov. So I came to Berlin just to listen to your speech.
Слушай, ну, мне кажется, что ты правильно сказал про две.
You're absolutely right. If you speak about the reasons, so the two main problems out of three we have, or we face, is the media in exile, because you spoke about money, but you didn't speak about what happens with human resources. Do you have any ideas what to do with human resources, how to find them? Who can write for the media in exile? 2 years later, maybe from now. In fact, I don't know every time if I seek for a new employee, it's a big problem. As you understand, we have a very specific focus. We are economic medium, and we need people who is specialized in this. But we have a very small editorial board.
Первое, что, это как бы второй столб такой, как бы, да, того, что должны делать медиа в изгнании, это экономить деньги.
So we have to save money because we are media in exile.
Так, с самого начала старались быть там, типа, маленьким стартапом, который слишком много не тратит, и мы до сих пор...
We always try to be a small startup, not to spend a lot. We have always a lot of difficulties in considering new expenses. And, well, I believe it really saved us a couple of times in difficult situations. So every person should be able to write any article. And it's a nightmare. So I think some trainings and educational projects are important, like projects by Medusa. But we are too small to initiate those projects.
Сотрудника нанимать это можно, но это надо сразу вывозить. Мы, в отличие от каких-то других СМИ, опять же, может быть, то, что мы маленькие, мы не работаем с людьми в России.
We are small media, we don't work with people in Russia because it's too risky. I don't have a reply to your question. I think it can be discussed, and it's a possibility for some joint workers. Thank you very much. Thank you. As we can't get help from big media schools like Moscow State University or High School of Economics, well, probably some colleagues went abroad to get with their children, and some of those children come of age and they could become journalists. Oh no, I hope no.
Я бы не стал под этим подписываться.
I don't think so.
Good.
Thank you very much. Kirill Martynov, Novaya Gazeta, Europa.
Да, всем добрый день.
Hello. So I will start with the subject that was announced by Boris, but that we didn't touch. It's the difference in views between those who are inside and those who went abroad. Well, I don't like to talk about, well, people who went abroad. We are trying to use euphemisms, don't want to speak directly. So there is some ideological shift. In our media work, focus should be different. I will give you a very simple example. I think a lot of statements made by Schlossberg, we would be able to publish them in our newspaper with a special mention that we don't share his views, and we would give the possibility to make a statement to his opponents until it's a part of a calm discussion. The problem with Schlossberg and with other colleagues, we can't be a forum for them. We can't be a platform because we are an extremist organization. And if someone works with us, this person risks criminal persecution. And that's that one of our main fears for the next season, that they will persecute our journalists, our experts, because, well, no one knows what collaboration with an undesired organization means. Myself, I am the first editor of an independent media who got criminal case for managing an undesired organization, and the administrative fine that I got, I really liked it because it was because of an interview by Bykov and Grebenshchikov 10 months ago. Dmitry Bykov got a fine, and this fine was the main proof that, I am the organizer and I am responsible. And there is a black joke that, when we used to work in Russia, we had to think whether we should publish an article if the editor risks criminal persecution. And sometimes we decided that, yes, it's worth the risks. Well, the interview by Kostyuchenko and a soldier from Buryatia, but we decided to publish it, so that it's worth the risk. So sometimes we had to take this decision, otherwise, it's not too often, otherwise it would be too risky for us. So I believe, some independent media existed in Russia, but it was a very strange independence. Every time it was risky. And now the situation is like this. When we think about how to present a story, we need to understand who can present the story without risking of being imprisoned. Can I call Russia? Can I talk to someone there who is important for my publication? Or maybe I would be too toxic for this person. So that's the lack of understanding, some small ideological shift between those who went abroad and those who remain. So we have the state machine that is working against us. And, I think, the state itself, they are impressed that we are still alive. They did everything for us to die, and we are still there. As for media in exile, I usually try to be an optimist. I always say that, yes, we will stay, that
скажем, что с 1 января мы прекращаем свою работу, как будто это не стоило всех тех жертв, которые там коллеги в прежние годы приносили на этом пути.
We should continue our work because all these sacrifices by our colleagues, so we want to continue, but I will be more pessimistic today, because I want all of us to have a better understanding of the existing reality. We have a lot of stories about journalists and media in exile, and those stories are not always related to Russia. I have a colleague from Myanmar in 1998, when they had the military junta. They wanted to create an independent TV channel in a neighboring country, and they worked in exile for 11 years. So they created this channel. For 11 years they worked abroad, and then they came back to Myanmar. So it was a happy end. But 10 years later, the military junta came back again, and we went into second exile. And for 5 years we've been in exile. So it happens like this. I have a journalist from Nicaragua who organized a masterclass for us. He shared an example of a Nicaraguan YouTube channel that the whole country is watching, and they are surviving thanks to donations from the subscribers. And well, I asked him, does it mean that people in Nicaragua can send donations to them? Well, and why not? We have bank secrets in our country. Well, I answer that yes, it's really good that dictators don't share best practices. I'm very happy for you, dear colleagues from Nicaragua. And I'm very happy that you have some bank secrets in your country. One of my colleagues made a thesis about newspapers in Ottoman Empire in Bulgaria. Until 28, they didn't recognize Atatürk's spelling, they didn't recognize the new government, and they wanted to show that in former Western provinces of Ottoman Empire there are real newspapers and real journalists. And our life, it's a mix of first letters to migration department about asylum seekers. Then the next is three about spies, and three, it's a Scandinavian TV series about depression. So we always switch about those three genres. And the sad thing is that media in exile started 5 people, and it's really terrible. There is a well-known project about a media startup in 2022. They had 50 lawyers, and then, well, the money was over. Well, I don't know how they can sleep at night right now. So media started to 5 people. So there are a lot of job seekers, and it will be worse in future. However, in our pseudo-media market, there are large corporations like Radio Free Europe. I really thank them. They, even if we fire someone who doesn't do their work, well, this person won't die from starvation. They will find work at Radio Free Europe. But I'm finishing my speech. Our organization, well, our wave of immigration that has the most journalists and the most active project, 80 media altogether went abroad. And for a lot of people, open a new micro-media is not easy. Well, the ideal media is 15 freelancers and 2 editors who work in shifts. Well, in 2022, it was not difficult to find money for such a media. And for a lot of people, such activity, well, was pretty important, not to lose self-esteem. It was a possibility also to get a humanitarian visa, because, well, in Europe, they are more serious about journalists than in Russia. So, micromedia can survive if they are successful enough and entrepreneurial enough. Big media will survive, but the medium-sized media are in the worst situation possible. So this romantic period of journalists in exile is touching to its end, because supporting 80+ media during several years without any economic model, well, no one will do it. Politicians won't do it, civil society won't do it, donations are not enough, so future is really sad and uncertain. And many of you will notice it when you see changes in the media landscape. So if some media appear to be really well established, appear to be eternal, and some independent newspapers, some radio stations, if they start to close, then everyone will understand what's going on. So we'll try to do something to slow down this process by using different possibilities. And a few more words about education. We understood from the beginning that we need new people. And
Значит, у нас есть, да, медиашкола свободного университета.
We have a media school, a free university, 2-year media school with 100 people who are learning that there. And I can't agree with Boris that we can't work with Moscow State University anymore, or the High School of Economics, because there are a lot of young people who can't get anywhere else, but who are trying to look around to check what's going on. There are teachers who allow them just to look around and to try different things. Well, the main difficulty is it's quite difficult for them to get to us.
Спасибо огромное, Кирилл.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Kirill. Well, it's quite honest, although quite sad. Andrei Yakovlev, yes, good afternoon. Thank you very much. It's a question not only to Kirill, but to everyone. It's about two important things. First of all, it's about journalists who stay in Russia.
Та же новая газета, которая выходит в электронном виде, допустим, тот же этот самый «Живой гвоздь».
Новая газета, «Живой гвоздь», RTVI.
Была представлена любопытная работа по поводу влияния.
I've just heard a very interesting report about RTVI content and its impact on the audience. Very few people know about it, but those who were asked to watch RTVI news, well, their political preferences changed a little after watching regularly RTVI news. So there are some resources that we can use. So I wanted to understand, well, whether there is some communication from within inside. And my second question, it's about different media that are supported by the USA, like Voice of America, well, BBC as well, then Deutsche Welle we have, it's foreign media. There are also media who work in Russia. There are quite a few people from Russia who work there. Do you communicate with them? Is there some community?
Yulia, Kirill, Petr.
Yulia, Kirill, Petr. Who wants to start?
Ну, слушайте, окей, значит, смотрите, в нашей ситуации как? В нашей ситуации есть множество версий, что случилось с новой газетой.
We have a lot of stories about what happened to Novaya Gazeta. We are supporting every story because the more versions there are, the more difficult it is for the Russian state to know the truth. Because, well, right now they are interrogating people in Russia in order to know what happened. Well, as we have an open public conference, we don't have any link to Novaya Gazeta in Moscow. We are criminals, we are extremists, and they are not. They are honest people. Well, that's what I can state publicly.
Yulia spoke about the project like Glush. I think this is a good example as freelancers who work for state or close to the state media, that in fact they want also to do something else, to play under different rules, and they cooperate with those half criminals abroad, the big Western holdings, media. So we thought that there are examples of the other times, since the times of the Cold War. They play a very important role now, the reference to them in distributing some narratives which are important for the American government. It is a sample that for that we need such media. They have a lot of resources. The difference between them and us, they have corporative rules, and we just have any rules to be able to work. We don't have any administration, any apparatus. We are flexible, we make quick decisions. And they have big corporations, they have rules, they have code of conduct. Some of them like to work as we do. The others, they like to work with all the social securities. Thank you. Thank you. I have two questions. Maybe to anyone who wants to answer. The first question is about money.
Сейчас Кириллу, когда перечисляли, как все будет плохо, с чем невозможно спорить, по-моему, что там пару больших выживет.
Kirill said that everything is getting worse, and many media will die, and only some of them will survive. And there is a feeling that that the market will be shrinking. So there will be still the same people working for different media. This is a realistic script, and it is already ongoing. But the question is, and we didn't discuss it, it is about the demand. Marek touched it in his speech. Of course, we can speak about the exhaustion of the war and tiredness of the war, and the readers are lazy and they don't want to read anymore about the war, and they don't want to read about the economic crisis. But maybe we should ask ourselves that maybe we do something wrong. Maybe it's not because that we left Russia, but maybe because we don't understand what the audience wants, and we see it in the figures. I know the figures of 2 big editions, which are shrinking, and even some awful things which normally attract the audience, they don't attract it anymore. There is a feeling that the audience cannot behold. The question, do you observe such thing, and what can we do about this? I heard about possible solution. The audience does not want to read any awful things. Maybe they want some educational content. Between this educational content, maybe we will put something between the lines, like about repressions, war, and tortures. How do you see this with your audience? Do you think about this task? How to hold the audience, or maybe to increase it even? I can say, as a person who said, let us do more lifestyle and less war, because we are a new media, we are growing. Maybe it's just because of our good strategy. I would like to believe that it is so. But it's not bad. No, it's not bad at all. It's a popular discussion within the editorial board, but also outside the editorial board. We need additional data in order to discuss it. All the big media, as far as I know, are unwishful organizations. In practice, it means that one of the consequences of this, that no person in Russia is not allowed to put even some harmless lifestyle content publish on its social media websites. That's why it's decreasing. Does it mean, if we speak about views, that the interest of people to difficult topics is shrinking? Will it help us if we still stay criminal organization, if we write more about lifestyle topics? We have to be a kind of a service operator. So I was thinking about which services can we offer to our readers, and I thought maybe a Russian manual. Everyone saw it on YouTube, how to enter the house. So recommendations by Olga Romanova. It can be an interesting service. Maybe we can monetize this. But if I speak seriously, I don't see any loss of interest to our work. Besides the exogenetic factors, but we had an access to all these 80 media. Maybe we have still the access to 20 to 30 million persons living in Russia, and this access is still there. The figures are still the same. If you publish very important information about the death of Navalny or some events like a riot of Prigozhin, so those 20-30 million persons, they consume it immediately. If you don't have your own information on it, then you write anything about some human rights defending and so on. So, but still the readers know that. We have just time for one or two sentences. Very shortly, please. I have a question which is pleasant for everyone. It's a simple question. So, the biggest part of the accusation against the media is that the media has to create its own content, which has to be brought to the Russian audience, and it has to be interesting for the Russian audience. The question is, does the media suffer if they don't create such content themselves? So do they want to create their own content? You mean, can you give an example of such a content? What do you mean?
Да, пример контента такого.
An example of such a content is, for example, Yulia Navalny says, I have a program to develop Russia 1, 2, 3. Or
Владимир Милов и говорит, вот у вас
Vladimir
сейчас
Milov says, the butter prices are too high, but if I would come to power, so the butter price will be zero. This is a program. I mean, such content. I don't know if I can answer this question, but I think the content which is created through the oppositional politicians and activists, or the information, this is still a content which is interesting only to some certain audience. But they read already our media. This is a politically interested audience. They know who Yulia Navalny is. Honestly said, I orient myself to grow the audience and to join to this audience the people who doesn't know who these people are. So to deepen its knowledge, that's why we don't need the content about the activity of the opposition, but we need the content about what is happening around these people. There is a question without a mic, so we cannot translate it.
Я последний вопрос не очень хорошо расслышал.
I didn't understand the last question, in fact. The question is not correctly formulated.
Оппозиция в эмиграции не создает контента.
The opposition does not create content abroad, but what does it have to do with the media? The media doesn't suffer because of that. The opposition itself maybe suffers because of that. For the media, it doesn't matter if they create any content or not. So you cannot accuse us of not writing about anything what does not happen.
Вот. Что касается контента, который оппозиция могла бы
speak about the content the opposition could create.
Есть вообще универсальное, по-моему, правило.
There is a universal rule of public relations which works well in the business part.
Каких-то крутых новостей каждый день, как у
If you
большинства
don't have any good news every day, in order to be in media, you need at least an expert content.
В СМИ попадают те компании, которые придумывают
And the companies have good public relations if they have interesting stories. Not every time the same, what companies always do, but that they produce interesting stories about their activity. In this case, maybe about the Russian society, or maybe about the Russian society in immigration. Unfortunately, the opposition, the political opposition, creates a content which comes into media, but that it doesn't provoke that anyone thinks good about this opposition, or something good about this opposition. We have a lot of such content. And the last question in this session. This is a question to Kirill. Please comment. What do you think? How can we help the regional journalism in Russia?
Я считаю, достаточно большая проблема.
It's a big problem. They don't have any independent media there.
Такое медиа, как 7 на 7 на сегодняшний день.
For example, such medium is 7 за 7. It's a good one. They work excellently, but they will have difficulties to write about the news, about what is happening.
Сообщений или там каких-то историй действительно важных.
So there are no important stories. I know it from Yaroslavl, for example. They have a very strong dictatorship there. So they don't allow them to write. How can we help the regional journalism? This is a very big and difficult question. I will try to answer it shortly. We have to support the journalists who want to work in the regions according to the honest rules. And these people will have to become a kind of a partisan, 100%. So maybe they write about some common things, but then they know something special about your region, and then you can maybe publish your story somewhere else, maybe outside of Russia, maybe not to the immigrant media, but maybe to some alternative network. There are some alternative online networks. Maybe someone will risk to create a kind of a Telegram channel, or they need a kind of a friend abroad and to send the information abroad, and then the person abroad can publish it through a Telegram channel, so that you are not intimidated if they so that you are not arrested out of that. And then there are some educational projects for regional journalists who are trying to do this, and we appealed also to you to do so and to explain to people that if you want, you can leave the country. We will do it. We will try to get out the persons who worked anonymously in the regions, to take them abroad. So to get them to the place where the Russian authorities cannot get them. Just absolutely last sentence. I'm sorry for not having nice words. The name of the session about those who stayed and those who left, it's a question of faith. This is a problem. If you have a mindset, a special faith, so you need a kind of a prophet. You need to choose a side where you can be supported from. Like my grandfather read a newspaper, Soviet Russia, Sovetskaya Россия. And maybe many of us need such kind of newspaper with, in order to understand where you stand. So, and if we look into social media, so we need something which gives us a very clear picture. There is also such a thing like a crisis of events, crisis of news. What is interesting? Everything has already happened. So you can not surprise anyone with a nuclear weapon or nuclear mushroom. You can tell about the widow, Navalny's widow, or something else, but then doesn't happen anything more. The events just don't happen. This is also a kind of a crisis. There is no any key event. There are some events, but it's the same and the same and the same. And the audience is not interested in such events. It's such as a description of life after life. Unfortunately, yes. There are some small things, maybe interesting for some experts, some niche things, but in a bigger scale, everything has already happened. So either you write about emotions, so it means that you write about what people like just to be supported, or you're bored. Economics is another thing. Either the ruble is going down or going up, or there is a devaluation. I don't have any good conclusion. I have a feeling of solidarity with those who are in Russia, with our readers, our colleagues and supporters and journalists.
Конечно, очень хочется, чтобы вот эти все эксперименты, в том числе, о которых Петр рассказывал,
I want that all the experiments about which also Petr said, that they succeed, that they will be sustainable. But I agree with the sad forecast of Kirill. So the movement on the sad road will not be a quick one. As a postscriptum, maybe you know, maybe you already know, so the information about these conferences was declared, this Radio Sakharov, which we work for, is declared as a foreign agent. But we're still here.